What's going on, guys? I am Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another zombies video on the channel, back with another Q&A where we take your questions from the comment section below to do with the zombie storyline, Easter eggs, and answer them. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, you know what to do by now. Drop a like rating if you want to. If not, it's totally fine. Whatever you guys want. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. But let's get into it. Here we go. So the first question of the day from Oh No No says, hey BOA, in BO4 you can revive people with the staff. But Shaw was revived with the staff and he became a part of the cult. Why is the crew not part of the cult? Do they have to be fully dead? Please answer. Love your videos. So that's correct. We know in the zombies storyline, Bruno is a part of the cult. We learned in the zombies comics, as he and Alistair went on a journey to Constantinople to recover the scepter of Ra, Bruno got into a fight with a bunch of members that were being employed by the cult to deliver the scepter to them. Bruno ended up being killed and Alistair used the scepter to revive him. And from then on, even though Bruno was brought back to life, he was now unknowingly a part of the cult. So we learned, or it seemed like, whenever you die and get revived by this weapon, you then become a member of the Order. You are under their control. And this was even confirmed to us in one of these zombies trailers. We can see the Order have this person with them. They take him to this place, this secret lair or wherever it is, and they tell him that in order for him to join their order, he has to sacrifice himself and they will revive him. And so that's exactly what happens. He is stabbed, the scepter of Ra is used, he's brought back to life, and he is now one of them. And as you also say in your comment, Shaw is also one of them. We see in Ancient Evil, halfway through the Easter egg, they begin to control him, where he stabs Shaw, he kills him, and then uses the scepter to revive him, meaning that Bruno and Shaw are now members of the Order. But as you say, if that's the case, if the scepter revives people and then turns them into members of the Order, then why are the rest of the characters, Diego and Scarlet, not members as well? Because in game, obviously the scepter is one of the special weapons, and one of its abilities is to revive the crew. If one of us goes down, once you level the scepter up, you can actually use its powers to revive them. So if we use this weapon in game to do that, why are Scarlet and Diego not members of the cult? That's a good question. It's one I can't really answer. I'm not too sure. Maybe in terms of canon storyline. Let's say if we had a book like the Canorium for the Chaos storyline, it probably wouldn't say that Diego and Scarlet had been revived by the scepter. I mean, just because we do things in game, not every little thing is necessarily how the story goes. We see if we do the actual Easter eggs, we don't use the scepter on them at any point. But it definitely is a valid question because we can use it to revive our characters in game, yet two of them are not members of the cult, or at least as far as we know. We only found out at the end of the Voyage of Despair Easter egg that Bruno was a member, and that was only because we saw the light shining on his head. So possibly there's a small chance that Scarlet and Diego are, but I don't think so, because I'm not 100% sure how it works, but possibly you have to be fully killed before you can join the Order, because in zombies, the characters only go down, they don't fully die, so maybe that's how it works. You have to sacrifice yourself or be fully dead for it to actually turn you into a member. But like I said, I'm really not too sure. Because the Chaos storyline is relatively new, there are still a ton of things that we don't know about, and this is just one of them. But as always, if you guys have any ideas, let me know down below. Tristan Baracci says, hey BOA, in the earlier games, World at War BO1 and BO2, I remember there were mentions of the Vril being responsible for a lot of things in the zombies storyline, but now they are never mentioned. Are the Vril the same as the Apothicons? If they are, why does nobody call them that anymore? And if they're different, what happened to them? So you are right, back in the old days, I guess you could say, World at War and BO1, we heard of the Vril quite a lot. They were mentioned in our older maps, and then we heard of objects such as the Vril Sphere or the Vril Generator, the Vril Interface, and using that we can work out what exactly they are. Our Ultimus crew used both the Focusing Stone and the Vril device. They merged them together, which created the Vril Sphere. They then placed this onto the Vril interface on the front of the MPD pyramid, which we know was then opened and used for Richthofen to switch bodies with Samantha. But basically, if the MPD pyramid has a Vril interface on it, clearly that's got something to do with them, and we know that the MPD was created by the Corrupted Keepers. We learnt that in the Canorium, where it says the Corrupted Keepers create the Ether Pyramid, a device capable of absolute power. A schism forms between them and the Keepers untainted by the Dark Ether. And we know during the War of Argotha, just as the Corrupted Keepers were facing defeat, they hit the Ether Pyramid on Moon, and that's exactly where we see it today. The MPD is the ether pyramid created by the Vril. So who are the Vril? They were the corrupted keepers. Vril is the name for them in the old story, but then obviously as we've evolved, as we've gone on through different writers, Craig Houston and Jason Blundell, they've introduced new things, and the Vril are just an old name for the keepers, specifically the corrupted ones. So yeah, that's exactly what they are. The Vril are the keepers. And it's actually interesting because a lot of old things from zombies from back in the World at War and BO1 days were actually taken from real life inspirations. For example, we know Doris, the teleporters, the Wonder Waffle, all of those things were taken from theories, I guess you could say, to do with the Nazis. Supposedly they were creating their own teleporters, and that's where Tryout got the inspiration from. And as you see in this instance, the Vril, which we heard about now and again during World at War and BO1, although it was very mysterious in the day, well, the idea for this was actually taken from a book called The Coming Race. And the Vril device specifically is actually very similar to something in this book, which was called the Vril Staves. Of course, I haven't read it. It was first published in 1871, but it talks about a superior subterranean master race and an energy form called Vril. That sounds extremely similar to me to the Keepers, which exactly describes them, a superior subterranean master race. That's what they are. They were among the first living creatures, along with Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man, to ever exist. I mean, it does sound really interesting, but yeah, there we go. The next question of the day says, has Nikolai and Primus met Monty at the time of Blood of the Dead and classified? Well, no, he hasn't. Right now in BO4 Zombies, Nikolai, Takeo and Dempsey don't know who Dr. Monty is. Remember that Blood of the Dead takes place in between Zetsubo Noshima and Gorod Kurovi? The Primus characters only met Dr. Monty in Revelations. They first heard him talk to them in Gorod Kurovi, so I guess you could say they found out about him then, but they didn't meet him until Revelations. However, Gorod and Rev haven't happened, and in fact, they aren't going to. And so, at this time in Blood of the Dead, they haven't yet heard about Monty, they haven't yet spoken to him, and they haven't met him. So no, Nikolai, Takeo or Dempsey don't know who he is. However, we know that Richtofen does. Way before this, we know that him, along with Maxis, came up with a plan with Dr. Monty to, in quotation marks, save the world. Of course, we know Monty was tricking them, but those three came up with a plan to create Monty's perfect universe with the children. So Richtofen knew who Dr. Monty was. However, Nikolai, Takeo or Dempsey don't. And of course, Richtofen, who did, sacrificed himself in Blood of the Dead. He died. Yes, there is post-Revelations Richtofen who also knows about him. And in fact, if we take a look at the Blood of the Dead ending cutscene, we can see...
Ain't that swell? Does that mean we win?
I would be greatly relieved if that were so. I am in no hurry to ensnare my mortal soul.
That will not be necessary, Nikolai. The future has changed.
The Chronorium?
Read it. Learn of your true calling. You must keep your soul. It will be needed to defeat Dr. Monty.
Who?
After everything's finished, Dempsey says, does that mean we win? Nikolai replied, I would be gratefully relieved if that were so. I am in no hurry to trap my mortal soul. And that is when post-Revelations Richtofen butts in and says, that will not be necessary, Nikolai. The future has changed. We know he then gives Nikolai the Chronorium. He tells him to read it, learn of his true calling, what he needs to do, and that he must keep his mortal soul. Richtofen then tells him that it will be needed to defeat Dr. Monty, and Nikolai replies, who? And so we can see Nikolai clearly doesn't know who Dr. Monty is. Like I said, him, Takeo and Dempsey haven't met him at this point. It was later on down the line, so it's going to be quite weird when we do get to the Great War and we go to defeat him, because obviously we've already played out Revelations, we've already seen these characters interact together, but this time around, now that the cycle is broken, because these characters, besides from Richtofen, haven't met Monty, it's going to be weird to see their interaction. Are they going to say, we finally meet, or something like that? Of course, Dr. Monty knows who they are, but Nikolai, Takeo and Dempsey are going into this fight with him without knowing who they're going to kill. They shouldn't know what he looks like. They probably won't know the powers he has, what he can do. They've just heard about him. Obviously, Nikolai's read the Chronorium and knows what Monty has been doing and that he needs to defeat him. But yes, it is quite strange. They haven't actually met Monty. So there we go. That is all for today's video, guys. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have a like rating, as always, would be appreciated. If not, it's totally fine. Whatever you guys want to do, make sure you are also subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. But until next time, goodbye.